Wizard of the Wood. Chapter 29. No Other Way. Spring was settling into the land. The clutches of winter were slipping as fast as the ice and the snow on the branches nestled in the trees along the edges of Fanged Ridge could melt. The smallest of creatures were returning from their hiding places back out into the open. The plants were beginning to show their faces once again as the light of the sun kissed them. Gentle warmth guided the day, spreading like a warm embrace across the valley and through the trees. The wind was scented with the promise of spring. The brooks were babbling with the winter water. The cool streams filled with the icy water of melting snow danced in the morning light. It was there, in the shade of the side of the mountain, that Ryler found himself studying, laying in the crook of Essie's neck as she read her various texts aloud to him. Some of the books were ones she remembered, and they were filled with stories she had heard from Caven, or stories Ryler had told her in passing as they spent more time with one another. Other books were ones that Essie had composed of things that she remembered. It was at Ryler's insistence that Essie actually write everything she remembered down into her parchments and into her books. Essie initially resisted him when she heard he wanted her to write everything she remembered down into one of her many books. I told you, Ryla, I cannot change the past. I'm not able to change the past. Why would I write it down and try to recall it if it has no influence over who I choose to be now? My memories of who I was. And I choose not to be that anymore, she said over and over. Essie's stubbornness was matched only by Ryler's determination. Essie, it is good to remember these things, he reminded. And if I do not want to remember? Asked Essie. If I would rather keep everything nice and tidy and tucked away. Then, at the very least, you need to get it out of your head so that it doesn't hurt you. Weren't you the one who said that poison must be drawn from a wound before it can hurt you? Or something along those lines, stated Ryler. Essie remembered smiling at hearing Ryler say these things, somehow drawing reassurance that her education was taking root in his mind. I did indeed say that, replied Essie. I may not agree or like it, but I will comply with your request if it makes you happy. Ryler's smile that day was a thoughtful, caring one. It brought her reassurance, like she was doing the right thing, even if she wanted to outlast the stubbornness of her handheld companion. Now, months later, Essie had filled up parchment stack after parchment stack, book after book, of memories that sometimes brought themselves to the forefront of her mind. More recently, however, the memories presented themselves in dreams. Yes, Essie was able to dream again. Sadly, very few dreams were those of the light-hearted, warming variety. Many of the memories were the same ones from her time when she was suffering at the hands of her captor, that wicked woman, Damia. Sometimes, Essie felt tired of writing the same memories over and over again. Then again, it sometimes brought about new details that Essie had not noticed before. At the very least, it helped get the thoughts out of her mind and kept them from distracting her at every chance they had. Somehow, it was like moving the memory from one place to another by writing it down. Keeping it away from her and her mind was helping. The book she read now was one of her memories from Caven. It was one of the more educational ones, where she and Caven had gone out venturing in the wilderness for herbs and spices for dinner later that night. Caven was riding on Essie's shoulder when they came upon a particularly slippery patch of mud. The day was beautiful and crisp, though the sun held no particular warmth for me. Evidently, the warmth of the sun was also not enough for the land below either, but I did not realize it until it was too late for myself and my mentor. When I went to cross the patch of viscous mud, Caven adamantly warned me that I ought to be sure-footed before attempting to traverse the slick terrain. Caven insisted that he traverse the terrain first, but I would not hear of it. I insisted I was capable. Little did I know it was a fool's errand, and that I was walking into an enormous embarrassment waiting to happen, said Essie as she flipped to the next page to continue reading. No sooner had I taken 3 steps into the slickened terrain did I suddenly realize that the top layer was merely ice that covered the slick mud. Double the slickness, double the prideful fall I soon endured. Much to Caven's dismay, he too was subjected to the humiliation of falling flat on his back as I had done, cracking my skull, which left me with a headache for the next day to follow. Essie, stated Ryler as he leaned against Essie's neck and continued to listen. Essie stopped reading aloud and focused her attention on her handheld companion. Yes? Essie prompted. I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you remember anything else from last night? Essie knew immediately what Ryler was referring to. The dream from the night before. Essie closed her eyes and thought for a moment about what she had seen. A fragmented mirror. Some woman screaming, begging for a mysterious her not to be taken. A beautiful cottage surrounded by sunflowers. Sadly, nothing else. Essie shook her head. No, nothing else, she said softly. Trust me, I will inform you the moment I rediscover something that needs rekindling. I do trust you, reassured Ryler. I just want to let you know that I'm here if you want to talk about it. I know, said Essie, smiling thoughtfully as she reached up and gently tapped Ryler's boot. Now, no distracting yourself from your studies. Essie, sorry, just one more question, said Ryler. Do you want to learn more? I do not follow, Essie said apologetically. That barrier, the barrier veil thing that you say is keeping your memories at bay. Do you want to learn more? Asked Ryler. I don't want to force anything. I just want to know. Personal curiosity. Sorry. Essie thought about it for a moment. Did she want to know more? Did she dare test the barrier that had, for the most part, remained intact after everything that had happened? At the moment, no, stated Essie. Perhaps one day I will dare to test the barriers that my mind has constructed to protect me. I know I am not defined by the things that I may or may not have done in the past, but I have to truly be myself in the present before looking at the past. I think it will make me stronger. Does that sound foolish? Not at all, reassured Ryler. I think that's very insightful. I'm glad you know this about yourself. Months ago, I don't think you would have given the same answer. Well, it is easier when you have a friend to talk to, stated Essie, smiling over at Ryler, who she noticed was smiling back. Agreed, he said. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Ryler never knew his life could be like this. He was being educated. He was learning every day, studying histories and herbology. He lived with a thoughtful, caring, and yet reserved woman who was dedicated to furthering her knowledge at every opportunity. He lived with a giant, and not just any giant. He lived with Esilia Sere, first of her name. He lived with the Wizard of the Wood, and he wouldn't have it any other way.